Hey, I'm Megan. I'm a costumer and I'm also fat. And I wanted to talk about how fat is not a bad word. And I wanted to talk about some of my thoughts from the costume college video, um, Busting Myths Size Inclusion with Extant Garments, and my thoughts on that. So first I wanted to say that I've never been to costume college and I've always wanted to go, and seeing that there's a panel about size inclusion makes me want to go more and makes me feel more welcome and included. And so I think it's super cool that there's a panel on this. And yeah, I think that it's awesome. That said, there were some things that made me a little bit about the video. The first was that there was only 3 panelists and only one of them was plus size. And I know that the idea was it was an academic viewpoint on extant garments and size inclusion, but it does kind of rub me the wrong way as a fat person that it was primarily straight size people, because their perspective is going to be different, even though they're talking in an academic sort of way. Second was their choice of language. So they knew that they wanted to be respectful about what words they chose to use in the panel, which I really think is cool. But they decided to poll the people, I think on Noelle's channel or something, I'm not sure. But basically, it was just we're going to do a poll and see what people think is best. Which in theory seems yeah, that makes sense. But not everyone who takes that poll is going to be a larger person, fat person. And it seems to me that's the group of people who should have a say in what the language is, because we're the ones who have had it used against us as insults and weapons and whatnot, like that, you know? So if you think about another marginalized group, if you wanted to know the right language to use when talking about them, I personally wouldn't conduct a poll of random people. I'd probably do research in the field and see, okay, what is commonly the correct language to use. And so if you do some research on fat acceptance, fat liberation, body positivity, fat positivity, you'll find that we have reclaimed the word fat. It's just a descriptor. It doesn't have a moral value. It's just a word. I am fat. It's just what I am. It's not a bad word. And that more and more fat people are becoming comfortable with the word fat, and we're reclaiming it for ourselves. I understand that not everyone has come to feel comfortable with fat, and so I understand why you might not want to use the word fat, but not using it at all definitely says something. I think that the choice of the word stout really felt it made me feel really I don't know any fat people who've reclaimed the word stout. I don't see people online in the fat acceptance movement reclaiming the word stout. And you even mentioned in the panel that you chose that word because it was used historically and that people today don't really use it. But I think that says something. If the people of a marginalized group aren't using a word today to describe themselves, there's probably a reason. I've never used the word stout to describe myself, and I kind of feel weird about the word. Yeah, that's my thought on that. So, I guess that made me feel the whole conversation wasn't really going to be coming from a site of knowledge about what it is like to be fat and be fat in costuming. And so they also chose that they were going to say the phrases smaller and larger, which also in theory sounds okay, that makes sense. These are comfortable terms. But what that does is that really erases the total spectrum of experience within larger. So if you talk about within fat, within plus size, the range of experience is incredibly vast. So someone who is size 16 on the small fat we would call end versus someone who is size 20 or 22 in the mid fat range versus someone who's 26, 28 we might call large fat, and then 5x, 6x you might call super fat or infinifat, the experiences of those people and how they're going to be able to find clothes and dress themselves is vastly different. And it's a lot more different than it is for someone who's a size 4 to a size 10 to a size 12. Um, so if you just boil it down to smaller and larger, it really doesn't capture how different those experiences are. I thought it was super cool that Noelle said what size she was in the panel. I know like there's this whole thing of like we don't say what size we are, and that made me feel really cool and comfortable. So thank you. But I wanted to say that the experience of a size 16 person is really different from this first experience of a size 20 person, and so on and so forth, right? So it would have been super cool to have some more larger fatter people on the panel to get their perspectives as well. I know for me, my experience costuming at size 16 was totally different from my experience costuming now at size 20. It's a lot harder for me to find clothes that I can buy like secondhand or from different companies because I'm not an amazing seamstress, and even more inclusive patterns don't go up to very large sizes, and so you have to learn to modify them and stuff. It's a lot more challenging. I don't have any friends that are the same size as me to lend me clothes so that I can go to an event that I don't have an outfit for. Like, these is more challenging the larger you are, and so when you boil it down to smaller and larger, it doesn't really encompass the range of experiences for fat people. So, what I would recommend is if you really don't want to use the word fat, plus size would be okay. And instead of smaller, what we fat people use is straight sized, because we acknowledge that like someone who is size 12 probably doesn't consider themselves thin, right? But they are straight size. They're able to go to the store and find clothes, and they don't have to worry about seatbelt extenders on an airplane or in a car, or whether or not they're gonna be able to fit in a chair at a restaurant, or be able to go on a ride at an amusement park. These are things that fat people have to think about, especially people who are mid-fat, large fat, or super fat. Their experiences are so different. And so, well, I think it was so cool that panel happened, and there was some really awesome stuff. Like, I loved seeing the larger clothes that could have fit me. That was amazing. It would have been awesome to get some voices from some fat people and hear the word fat. And yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to say is I think that it would be super awesome if people did a little research on fat acceptance, and I'll put some links down and some people to follow, and just like learn some more. I think if you want to be truly size inclusive, you should have some knowledge of the fat acceptance movement. And I would totally love to like if you have questions, like come to me. I'm totally happy to chat more and whatnot, and thank you so much.